Yeah, it's funny. I always said if I didn't do what I did for a living, I'd love to be an NFL GM. In the NBA, you could do that. Like you have to. I mean, I watch preseason football. Like it's a reality of what it is. But in the NBA, sometimes I think we overthink analytics, and I'll pivot back to the Lakers. So I always use this argument. I think the smartest team I've ever seen in my life was the Miami Heat when they had Battier, Ray Allen, Udonis Haslam, Chris Bosh, LeBron, D Wade. Mario Chalmers drove me crazy. It's like he didn't fit. But the rest of those guys were like really sort of
They're smart
it's
players.
like yeah, and it's like beyond smart, self-awareness, situational awareness. And I remember that Miami team, Jason. Joel Anthony was a 6'9" center. They had no true point guard. LeBron and D Wade are both like at the time streaky shooters, hyper athletic, need the ball to be dominant. And I remember when they put it together, I'm like, what the hell? How's Bosch is the best shooter outside of Ray Allen? Like, I don't even know what this team is. They were so smart. They were so good. They fed off each other. There was no egos. It was like LeBron was just so damn happy to play with another elite player after all those years in Cleveland. And it was just a force of optimism. It was a force of intellect. I loved watching them play. I think they're one of the weaker dominant teams of my life. They didn't have a dominant big. They didn't have a point. It was just like smart dudes understood spacing, the floor, and everybody, and I think D Wade is really a key component in that. He understood very early. Oh wow, LeBron's really good. I'll be a two. I'm totally happy. I don't need to be the ace on the staff. By the way, a lot of guys struggle with that. D Wade Smart's like, no, 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 I'm good. I'll step back. It's my city. It's his team. And I think sometimes we get too caught up in that. Like Draymond, really smart basketball player. Jimmy Butler, really smart. Curry, really smart. In the end, these games, remember, when you go to the playoffs, you're playing the same team. Everybody knows your little tricks. They all become circumstantial. They're all situational. Half court, like Houston's not going to run like that in the playoffs. You're not going to get all those free. You're not going to get that 12 points a game you get because you're young, athletic, twitchy, you run. You're not going to get that stuff. So I don't know. When it comes to NBA teams, like right now, I look at the Lakers and I'm thinking, Jesus, Luka and LeBron are really big brands, self-aware, very secure. I don't know. I just look at the Lakers differently today. I think they're a different team. I mean, Austin Reeves, it's a bunch of guys. They all kind of have the same game, different levels of it. They want the ball. They like the ball. But when I watched them last night, I'm like, everybody is completely secure in who they are. There's not going to be any struggles with this team. I don't know. Maybe I'm too optimistic on being an LA homer, but there is value, and I know I'm being long-winded on this. There is value on smart guys playing basketball and enjoying watching other people succeed. That's a thing, right?
To your point, the playoffs are so much about problem solving. Like, okay, we're having trouble with this coverage. What are we going to do? We're having trouble with them running this action. What are we going to do? And you just put enough smart minds in a room and they can figure it out. And, I think there's a little too much being made of the center position. Even as I'm looking at some of the stuff with the centers that were being thrown out there, I want to be like, okay, this center might be your seventh or eighth best player. I don't want my seventh or eighth best player playing 20 minutes in a playoff game. He's a guy who
Right.
should be barely seeing the floor. And I think one of the things that makes me optimistic on the size front is like Luka is 6'9", LeBron is 6'9", Dorian Finney-Smith is 6'8", Rui is 6'9",
Rui's big.
Jared Vanderbilt is 6'9".
Yeah. This is
They're
not small ball.
but they're huge. Like it's a bunch of huge perimeter players. And like I imagine a scenario in the playoffs where it all goes down, where it's Austin, LeBron, Luka, where Austin's your small guy, but then it's 6'9", 6'9", and then it's gonna be two of Vando, Rui, or Dorian Finney-Smith, who are both 6'9", or all 6'9" rangy forwards. And so, for example, look at Oklahoma City. So like Oklahoma City's really good, but it's like a lot of 6'5" and 6'6" guys. So like even though they will present issues with their bigs in that series, like Chet's a problem, Isaiah Hartenstein's a problem, the Lakers are going to have 4 inches on every single matchup in that series that's on the perimeter, which is something to at least account when you're talking about this sort of thing. And that's where I look at the problem solving piece. Like LeBron, we talk so much about Kevin Durant being a plug and play guy. And for the record, I think he probably still is the best plug and play guy. But LeBron's a plug and play guy too. It's like, you mean the guy who can defend and can rebound and can run. He can run action, but he can also screen. He can shoot when he's in spot up situations. He can play out of the post. Like, LeBron can just shape shift into whatever your team needs. It's like the other night against Golden State. He has 17 rebounds in a game. You know why? Because it's like, we don't have a center. So tonight I'm just going to grab every damn rebound. Like that's just what I'm going to do because that's what the team needs me to do. And so when I look at that group, it's just, there's a lot of like kind of Swiss Army knives in that group. And I think that goes a long way towards kind of like problem solving the types of things that you're going to run into in the postseason. As a matter of fact, even when it comes to the center position, the only thing I'm concerned about is Jokic. Like, they don't have anybody that can even come remotely close to bothering Jokic.
We talked about this on the show. J-Mac and I talked about this today. I'm like, Jokic just scoring 45 points in the series. Like, just bake it in, pick on Jamal Murray's defense, like whatever, but he's going to score 45. You just have to come to terms.
Yeah, I agree. The only reason why I'm waiting to watch more Lakers basketball before I come to any sort of conclusion is, like you mentioned, Denver can struggle to guard. And that means they're definitely going to struggle to guard the Lakers because everyone's going to struggle to guard the Lakers. And 2, this is not the 2023 Nuggets where they had Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as like this shoe-in 5th guy. It's going to be a lot of like Christian Brown or Russell Westbrook seeing minutes in the postseason. And those are guys that I think JJ Redick's going to be like, that's not Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We can help off of him. Now, Denver's going to find ways to score. They're going to score a lot of points in that sort of matchup, but I am curious to watch. They play in like a week and a half, and I'll be really interested to watch that game, mostly just to see how effectively they can break down Denver's defense. Because JJ's going to have plans. He's going to have things that he can try to get the ball out of Jokic's hands, but that's an interesting matchup there. And like, it's a classic example of styles make fights. And I don't know about you, Colin, but if we look at last year in the Western Conference, that was a matchup playoff series in every single round. It was like, oh, Denver couldn't handle Minnesota, but Minnesota couldn't handle Dallas. I think Denver probably beats Dallas, but you get matchups here or there. Like, what if Denver ends up at the 4 seed because the Lakers passed them at some point in the regular season? Now Denver's got to get through OKC in round 2 before they even see the Lakers. So like, that's where it gets into one of these situations where you can't write any of these teams off because they could catch a matchup and lose early.
Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video. Let's finish with this. I had said this. I am not going to defend Nico Harrison. I'm not going to do it. But with the new max deal, and because Luka, because of his all-NBA and his experience, qualified for like the top of the food chain, it was different when the max to LeBron was $38 million. And that still wasn't maybe as much as a great NFL quarterback. When the max now is $74 million annually, okay, I get owners saying he's not in great shape, he doesn't defend, he's missed the last 2 camps, he hasn't played since Christmas. There's a duality to all this stuff. Yes, the stars will be paid more than Patrick Mahomes, like 30% more in some instances, 20% more. But I do get even billionaires going, okay. We've gotten to $75 million a year. You just say this out loud. Doesn't defend, not in great shape, missed camp 2nd time, hasn't played since Christmas, doesn't have a great work ethic, naturally gifted offensively. Yet that doesn't sound like a $74 million employee. Like, LeBron qualifies that. And Edwards, I mean, there's Wemby's, there's got a handful of players you're like, you just pay that. Steph Curry. But I do think is that when you get into a stratosphere where you're paid more than the highest paid CEOs on Wall Street, like there's a big difference. You're like, ooh, guys making $35 million a year. Okay, that's insane money. $74 million a year. And it's like, yeah, he's missed the last couple of camps. Hasn't played since Christmas. I do think, and you start looking at Kawhi, you look at Embiid, and then you look at NBA legends like Kobe and LeBron. there was a little bit of a Shaq quality with Luka where you're like, yeah, I know he's transformational, but the Lakers moved off Shaq. They moved off Shaq, and they talked about conditioning and commitment and playing defensively beyond block shots. So I'm not saying it's a good job. I wouldn't have made the deal. But I think, Jason, when you start getting into $74 million, I get an owner going, and I got to pay 5 years of this? And I'm watching these like hasn't played since Christmas. I kind of get it to some degree. Am I nuts?
You're not. I mean, the concept that you're talking about, I think I've run into a lot as I'm looking at certain players. Like even I saw the Brandon Ingram deal today, and I'm like, good God, $40 million a year for Brandon Ingram. I'm like, when he's healthy and in rhythm, he's good, but he's been that like 10% of the time over the last couple of years. Like that series against the Suns in the first round a couple of years back, he looked amazing, but it's like, that's a lot of money to tie up. Jaylen Brown, I like Jaylen Brown, but there's some years at the end of his deal where he's making like $65 million. That's a lot of money to pay for some Jaylen Brown. You know? But
when he's regarded as the second best player on a team, second most gifted, it's like, I like Jaylen Brown, but I think fans are forgetting $75 million. It's just it's like Elon Musk. And I forget when this happened over the last couple of weeks. It's like, didn't Denmark or something like reject his bonus? There was some story about people went, okay, you can't have $1 billion bonus. Like, we're not doing that. Like, there's even among rich people, there are numbers that feel egregious. And I am going to look under the hood and I'm going to examine everything. If Luka was $48 million today, you just not worry about the defense. But barking at officials, not in shape, hurt, missed a second camp, hasn't played since Christmas, doesn't defend. There's part of me that just gets it. There's a Shaq thing going on.
I get it. Here's my one counterpoint. Shaq was considerably older at the time. And yes, in my opinion, there are 5 transformational talents in the NBA. 5 talents that if you get this guy, everything you do is so much easier with team building. It's Jokic, it's Giannis, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it's Wemby, and it's Luka. To me, Luka's one of those guys, and he's 25 years old. Even with the cap, like they're smoothing the cap so that they avoid the Kevin Durant situation in 2016. But the cap's going to go up like something crazy, like $10 million a year in perpetuity through the end of the decade as they wrap in all this new TV money. So like even in the context of team building, I think like even if Luka was taking up $75 million in my cap, but I think I can get a payroll up to 180, 190 within a couple of years. I feel like I like my chances building around Luka. And so like, even though I agree with all things you said, and Colin, I made sure to say this in my show after the trade, like I was super critical of Luka after the finals. We talked about it. It was the worst defensive performance I've ever seen from a star in the finals. His conditioning is embarrassing. For the record, one of the things I'm excited about is I think LeBron, you can see it in his body language. I think LeBron is trying so hard to set an example for him. He's on Instagram in his hyperbaric chamber. He's hustling around on defense like he's never done it in his life. Like LeBron is trying to set this example for Luka because he knows the potential that is there. But this is all I would say. He's fat, he's chubby, and he's slow. But he was fat and slow in the playoffs last year, and he absolutely obliterated the Minnesota Timberwolves and got within 3 wins of the trophy. Like at a certain point, I'm like, let's not overthink this. Even though I agree with everything you're saying, I just think Luka was worth the risk.
Yeah. So it's called Hoops Tonight. It's Jason Timpf. I think he has the ability to break down games and film as well as anybody that does this. And he's going to become, as we know, when football season ends, we do a lot more with Jason. It's always great to see you. I got to be honest. I had a stomach virus. I've been staying away from the rocks, but I just had one, and I'm going to have another one when we sign off. It's a good night. It really did. I can be a little blurry tonight. I got to watch it. What game is tonight? What do we got tonight?
Oh, man, I haven't even looked at the slate yet. I would imagine that several more new trade guys to watch. Grizzlies, Suns, that's a fun one. Knicks, Pacers, that's a fun one.
Oh, all right, there we go.
Good to see you too, man. Looking forward to the rest of the season.